Hey guys, welcome to the new 2019 Ford Ranger. This week I have a 4x4 Lariat Supercab. As you can see in the back, we have these tiny little bench seats. Barely enough room to fit back there, but they could be usable in a pinch. Today I wanted to take you around this truck, show you around, give you an idea of what it's like to drive, and give some of my first impressions. This starts at about $36,000 for the 4x4 Supercab. It has a few options on it. We have running boards, the chrome appearance package, spray-in bed liner, chunky off-road all-terrain tires, the towing package, and of course this comes with a 6-foot bed. Let's see if we can unlock this here. It's a pretty lightweight bed, but there's no safety for dropping. It just falls on you hard if you're not ready, but luckily it's pretty lightweight. Nice sized bed, pretty usable. When I first saw this Ranger at the Detroit Auto Show, I thought, wow, this is almost the same size as the F-150. It's really not, and getting it out here in the real world, it's definitely bigger than the previous generation of Ranger, but it's still, I think, an appropriate size for what this is and this class of pickup truck. It's got a smaller presence on the road. It can easily fit into parking spots. It's definitely not as long. It's a nicely sized truck, and for some reason I'm getting some Australian and European vibes from just the design language throughout this truck, and that makes sense because this has been for sale pretty much everywhere else throughout the world besides the United States and Canada for the last few years. So what else can I say about this Ranger? It has 270 horsepower, 310 pound-feet of torque, mated to a 10-speed automatic transmission. This is the 2.3 liter Ecoboost engine, which I will say is quite a nice motor. Let's take a look in the back seat here. So there are two options, the Super Cab and the Super Crew. This is the Super Cab. The Crew has just a little bit more room, full-size seats. I still hear that it's a little bit cramped back there, but at least with this you get the 6-foot bed. With the Super Crew you get a 5-foot bed. So it kind of depends on how you're going to be using this truck. As you can see, if I close this door, sitting behind myself at 5'10", it's pretty cramped, pretty uncomfortable. If I swing my legs to the side, that's a little bit better. I do have a nice sliding window back here that you can open up. Here's a look at the interior. Let's see, how do I get out of this now? Looking inside, we have transmission gear selector, a nice manual handbrake, 4 high, 4 low, auto stop start on and off button, a couple of cup holders here, and a place to put your phone, plug it into Apple CarPlay. We'll get into an audio test a little bit later on in this video. You can hear the speakers. Sync, pretty much the same story as the Ford Edge ST last week. Works well, it's nice. You have buttons for climate control. It's quick, easily falls to hand. Similar gauge cluster setup as well. Nice sharp speedometer. The little menus to the left are a little bit small and hard to read sometimes, but it gives you enough information. You can get fuel economy and all sorts of different data, driver assist. Pretty easy to operate. And of course you can control your entertainment, navigation, and phone on this right screen. We have radar guided cruise control in this truck as well. Here's a look at the reverse camera. Not the best reverse camera, it's a little bit low contrast, a little bit low res, but it gets the job done. You can definitely see if people are coming in your blind spot. All right, let's take this thing on the road here. When you first start up the Ranger from a cold start, you get a pretty big whoosh. It must still have a mechanical fan, and it sounds very truck-like, which is kind of cool. And I do really like this Ecoboost. It sounds nice. I'm sure there's a little bit of audio pumped in through the speakers. It sounds a little bit artificial, but I think overall it's a pretty good tone. When you first start the truck up and drive off, this 10-speed does make a few rough shifts here and there, but once it warms up, it smooths out really well, and it does a pretty good job responding to your inputs and your power requests. Let's test the brakes here and do a little 0 to 60. Great brakes. Plenty of power from this 2.3 liter Ecoboost. It pulls nice, you hear a good amount of boost. I really do like this drivetrain. One complaint that I have, and Straight Pipes mentioned this too, I didn't really notice it until today, but there's a little bit of a shudder, a little bit of a drivetrain vibration on heavy starts with this truck. I don't notice it as much when I lightly accelerate, but if I'm half throttle or more, I'll just notice a little bit of a vibration through that first gear. Otherwise though, this truck is great. It's very smooth with its power delivery and its shifting. Let's talk about ride quality. So I think primary ride on this is pretty good. It handles rough roads and potholes with relative ease. Secondary ride though, when you're riding over undulations and larger whoops and bumps, can tend to be a little bit bouncy. Of course, this truck has a 7,500 pound towing capacity, so it definitely has to retain some stiffness to maintain that level of towing. But you know, I would say ride quality is acceptable, but it's definitely truck-like. You're not going to be, you know, just whooshing over everything with ease. One thing I noticed yesterday while filming the Winding Road POV test drive video too, stability control in this tends to kick in a little bit too early and a little bit too aggressively. So let's say you're pushing it around a corner, you'll hear some chattering from the front end, and the stability control kind of trying to reel you in and say, hold on, you're driving like a maniac, slow down, stop what you're doing. It's a little bit invasive, and I think it kicks in a little bit too early. I love the close ratios of this 10-speed. It really puts its power down well. Let's do a little U-turn here. Test the turning radius. Again, smaller truck. It definitely feels to be a good size. I like the interior dimensions in this Ranger. I really do like the size of this on the road. It doesn't feel too big. You have a really nice high driving position. It's not cramped in the interior too. I feel like I have a decent amount of space in here, but handling does seem to be pretty good. But you can hear there just a little bit of chattering from the front end as those brakes grab for the stability control. Let's take this on the highway. Turn signal has typical Ford sounds there. It has a nice satisfying chunk when you move the stock. Sport mode just kind of increases the throttle resolution, holds the gears a little bit longer, maybe gives you a little bit more boost early on. It could work well on a back road if you need to keep those RPMs up. It also seems like it turns off stop-start. You can see there over that bridge, just a little bit bouncy, but it's not as bad as some trucks that I've driven that they're just bouncing around constantly. Let's see how this does around the twisties here. We'll throw it in sport mode. Pretty decent handling. The ride quality kind of goes between floaty and bouncy. It's an interesting damping setup. Definitely feels truck-like. Maybe a little bit busy. So let's put it into cruise control here. 70 miles an hour. We're sitting just at 2,000 RPM. We can change our following distance. I haven't used radar guided cruise control in this too much yet. I found a little bit of funkiness going on with it yesterday when I was following a semi-truck. It seemed to struggle with its following distance. It was either tailgating or too far away. I'll need a little bit more time with this system to kind of learn its ins and outs. For now though, let's test the audio, go into Apple CarPlay, and listen to our soundtrack playlist. Great sound system, really impressive range and tonality, nice bass. Take it to a classical song here. Definitely doesn't fit the Ranger, but that's okay. We do this just for comparison. I'm really pretty impressed with how quiet and silent this truck is on highways. At highway speeds, over bumps, there's not a lot of cabin intrusion. It's pretty nice and livable. You can definitely enjoy some long journeys on this truck. Music sounds great. I really like the sound system. We have auto stop start turned on here. Let me turn this music off and we'll give you a taste of what that's like when it starts up right now. Works pretty quickly, pretty seamless. By the time you have your foot off the brake and onto the accelerator, you should be ready to go. I also have pretty nice visibility out of the cabin here. Forward, I can really see my sight lines well on where the edges of the vehicle are. These mirrors are nice and big. They show me really nice visibility out of the sides and the back. A nice good view out of the rear view mirror. No big A-pillars here either to block sight lines. Of course, you have this nice high driving position that you get from a Ranger. Overall, I'd say this is a pretty nice truck. There's a lot of configurations and ways you can spec this depending on how you're going to use it. Still, can't wait for a Raptor version of this. I think with this engine and some more compliant and and off-road friendly suspension, this would be a pretty potent vehicle. And as is though, this slots in really nicely below the F-150. I think if you need more interior space, you should probably just go ahead and buy an F-150. The back seat in this iteration and the crew cab are pretty, I think they're pretty cramped, pretty tight. You know, if you're going to be hauling around family or people in the back, you're going to want a larger vehicle. But if it's just you and one other person and you need a truck, this is a pretty good way to go. It seems to be pretty economical. I love the size and lower weight of this. I think definitely adds to some nimbleness and makes this much more usable in tighter city situations. You can easily take this to the grocery store, park it, get what you need, and you don't have to worry about moving this massive truck around the parking lot. So from that standpoint, it makes it to be a little bit more of a practical proposition. Everything's nicely laid out in here. I think it's an attractive interior. Anyway, guys, though, that sums it up for this video. I think we'll post a POV night drive later this week and see what my thoughts are after living with this for a few more days. Let's use this manual handbrake here. Great. All right, guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you in another video later. Take care.